All right, now get to sit down with legendary sports broadcaster Chris Myers. And Chris, as the first started off, is there anything you haven't covered so far in your illustrious career?
No, there's a lot of things have fallen my way from years at ESPN and Fox. Super Bowls are always big. World Series, the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show, which is going to be live Monday from Madison Square Garden right after the Super Bowl, Monday and Tuesday, Best of Joe. So pretty much whatever. I haven't done a lot of hockey or soccer, believe it or not. That's the one thing that on the radar I just haven't had time to. But I will say everything I've done, I've always enjoyed. I'm a fan at heart. That has never left me.
No, for sure. And that's the easy conversations. And we'll have a few of those because I'm curious from your perspective on even behind the scenes of all these great events. But one thing I wanted to make sure that we talk about, and for someone that loves their recovery, and I played and I see some of the equipment set up.
Yeah.
Gravity chair. I don't know where it went. Actually, Brad might be sitting in it right now. Recovery is so huge, not just for athletes, but for anybody. And Mueller's got a lot of different possibilities for people that are looking for help.
Yeah, including it's only been out for a couple of years. So they've been around for over 6 decades, Mueller Sports Medicine, but they have something called Mueller Revive. And it's basically a couple of chambers that you put on your leg, a material, and you press a button, you set it to the gauge you want for 20 minutes a day, and it's basically relieving pain in your legs, compression-wise, but it's not just through your legs because everything kind of begins with your legs. Yep. And professional athletes have used this. Dante Hall, Jermichael Finley, Chad Henne, just to mention a few of the NFL names since it's come out. Yeah. But it also helps for people like us if you play pickleball, half-court basketball, if you're a cyclist, if you're a runner, and afterwards in the evening, sit down, put these things on, adjust to your form, and it recirculates the blood, revives your body. And for me, too, traveling a lot, the back pain was one thing. I golf a little bit, too, not very well, but cross-country flights, sitting a long way, and that's not even exercise. But it helped with that, and I've used it. They sent this to me to try out. Obviously, I wouldn't endorse it if I didn't think that it was something that we could all use. So it's not just for high-profile athletes. It's for the everyman who, even if they're working construction and get tired and worn out, Revive. And you get it at Walmart, walmart.com, but it's Mueller Revive, R-E-V-I-V-E, and I highly recommend it if you're somebody who's dealing with some pain relief. It's a natural way to do it where your body regenerates itself through this process.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be functional, and why not have something that can help you function on a day-to-day? And actually, I'm excited because I think I'm going to test this out right after we're done. And especially, I had the luxury when I was playing to have some of the services that Mueller provided before. But now that I'm not playing, and I didn't even realize it was that easy to go get, I can't tell you how excited I am. I love the gravity chair. I took a good nap.
Oh, yeah, you did that?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and they've had, they've done things with knee braces and all time through the year. So best recovery care technology, and this is the advanced technology, and they are approved by the FDA with all of their devices registered. Some are not. So just so you know, you're getting something legitimate that's been looked at, checked on to make sure that it's the proper thing for people to use.
Yeah, you're the perfect person to talk about it. Talk about legitimate and talk about someone that has been legitimate in the sports space then. So we talked about, I asked you what you hadn't done. Let's talk about what you have done as far as your coverage. We're at the Super Bowl. You said you cover 6 Super Bowls?
For Fox as on the broadcast, but I've covered some, I would say 10 or 12 others as a reporter, but just not the network reporter. And for Fox, I was the sideline reporter in Miami when the Chiefs first broke through and came back against the 49ers the first time when Mahomes and Reed won their first one together. I knew then they were going to be good, but I really couldn't see a dynasty just because the competition around the league is so good. And now here they are with a chance to do something that's never been done before. And I'm amazed by that, especially it seems like this year and the last year, the team overall hasn't had, there's still Kelsey, Mahomes, and Reed. That's the core, and Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator. But they don't have that star knockout. In fact, the Eagles, I think, on paper, look like they have more talented players, especially in the trenches, running backs, whatever. But they have a way to win. They know how to work the opponents, and when the pressure's on, they respond.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what frustrates a lot of people. They just know how to win. That's it. They know how to win, and that's the biggest part, especially when you get into the playoffs. Doesn't have to be pretty. It can be ugly. Right. Got to get it done.
And they can win in different ways. They have that element that I saw the Patriots had this, and I know people get tired teams winning a lot with Brady, and I covered a couple of his Super Bowls, including the comeback against Atlanta when they were down 28-3. I had that sideline for Fox. But they do things where, and I know the officiating is a separate issue we can get into if you want, but they do things that I think gets the other teams may not admit it. But in the flow of the moment, the other team says to themselves, or at least some of them in the back, oh, here, it's the Chiefs. Here we go again. We can't. And they do things out of their comfort space, and it allows Kansas City to just do what they do. So they don't choke. I'm not saying that, but they get affected by here come the Chiefs and Mahomes, or if it's close, my goodness, don't let Mahomes get the ball. Buffalo has gone through that, and I've seen other teams go through that, and they did it against the Patriots, teams when they couldn't stop New England and Tom Brady's run for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, well, from Baltimore, the Ravens, unfortunately, got tough times breaking through, but the Chiefs, whatever happens, they find a way to get it done. If they get a break their way, and since you brought up the whole referee, I want to say controversy, but it's a conversation point. I mean, but you're mentioning it. I think it's just one other thing that's added into an opposing team that they feel like it's yes, there could be some physical results or missed calls, but it's become almost like a mindset mentally that kind of affects the play.
Yes.
I mean, is that something you're seeing when you've been reporting?
It's a good question, and I think it might affect referees. And I know the commissioner was upset. Of course, it's not rigged. I can tell you in 30 plus years of covering NFL games, being around referees, coaches, it's not rigged. But referees are human beings, and they make mistakes, and they try to be impartial, but they just kind of assume, hey, Mahomes, if he gets hit, it's probably a late hit. If Brady, and some guys get that. And my problem is that now we have the technology, whether it's a fourth down and trying to get across the line, to use the video, and only certain things are reviewable. Right. If everybody else could see it, we should have the eye in the sky. The game will be slowed down a little, but we got to get it right, especially in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. And they should step in and say, hey, you missed the face mask, or pick up the flag. That wasn't interference. Or let's rush this. That looked like he got past the line. And if you want to use some technology with a chip in the football, there's different ways to do that, and they are exploring that.
Yeah, you know what? And that's music to Brad's ears over there, because we talked about missed calls. And look, I'm not one that wants to sit there and go, well, these calls are the reason why a team won the game. Because you got to go and execute. How many times have you seen teams? This is why people don't want to admit this out loud, but the reality, the Chiefs might get a second chance. A lot of teams get second chances, but the Chiefs always would capitalize. How many teams got that chance, a holding call, extended a drive, but then they can't finish the drive? And there's people want to come up with those conversations over and over. The technology part, though, you're right, because it would alleviate people having that what if of going, well, is the NFL quote unquote?
And they always try to say, well, replay is it conclusive? Here's another thing that bothers me when they say, well, it was called this on the field, so we're not going to change it unless there's something really clear to overturn it. Well, if you got it wrong on the field, if it's still that close, why wouldn't you want to change it? Yeah. The Chiefs are well coached, but our eyes are not deceiving us. I mean, in all their playoffs and Super Bowls, the ratio is 2-1. The opponent gets called for more penalties. I'm sure you've seen the numbers. So that's not an accident. Okay. We're not seeing things. And in that Buffalo game, there's, as you pointed out, it wasn't just the key plays. The play before that fourth down, 1 yard rush attempt, there was a bad spot on the catch when they moved him back. So little things like that, whether it's intentional or not, as you said, they add up on the opponent and they give Kansas City a break here or there. They just shouldn't get all the breaks. I realize, none of us are totally impartial, but my goodness, it's got to even out a little bit.
Yeah, and you know what? I do get it. And Brad, I know, is going to give me this conversation after producing, because we've had this conversation on the show over and over again. I want to give credit where it's due, but things do add up overall. On another note, then, since it's Super Bowl, and we are from Baltimore, you covered so many Super Bowls. Any good moments when were you covering when the Ravens were in it all at any point capacity? Yeah,
I was not on the network broadcast because I think CBS had the game, but I was there covering first the Brian Billick Super Bowl where the defense dominated
this morning,
who I later got to work with in the Fox broadcast booth. So that was a great moment. And the Harbaugh brothers, I was there for that when the lights went out in New Orleans. And that was a classic game with the 49ers. So I'm a big, in fact, in my book, not to plug my book,
I want you to plug
that
the
deserves
book.
a wow. But I do talk. There's some personal stories in there. And when I was just covering games on a regular basis, my son was young at the time. One of the first times he went on the road with me as a teenager in Baltimore, and we're down on the field before, and he's a California kid. I'm not from, but anyway, he didn't bring a jacket. It was cold enough, and Harbaugh was out there with Flacco, and he got to beat him. And Harbaugh said, "Aren't you cold?" He goes, "Well, I didn't bring a heavy enough jacket." And so Harbaugh said, "Well, go in the locker room, tell the equipment manager he named him." He said, "Tell him to give you a jacket, and it's on me," or whatever. And it was a really nice, a nice gesture by John Harbaugh. And I met Steve Bisciotti, the owner, and those things stuck with me. It stuck with my son and family. So I kind of have a soft spot for the Ravens in my heart through the years, even though I don't get to call a lot of their games. That always meant a lot to me and to my family. But I did call one game where it was a regular season game, like it must have been 10 years ago, in the snow late in the year with the Vikings.
Oh,
and
my
it was
goodness.
back and forth. Well, we're like, what a dud. You couldn't even see the field. It was one of the most fun games. And that stands out to me. Of all the regular season games, I don't call playoff games. I'm usually working the field or the sidelines. But that was like you don't know what kind of game you're going to get going in. And I'm like, my goodness, there's Cordero Patterson, and there's another play by Flacco, and the snow made it entertaining. So anyway, that's funny that you guys raise an eyebrow because you obviously know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
yeah.
I remember that exactly. I think it was like 15-12 going into the last 2 minutes,
and all of a sudden
there was 7 lead changes or whatever it was, and you got to see that.
Yeah, it was great. Oh, you were there in person? Yeah. It looked like fun. It was, and I was having trouble seeing the line, but we superimposed for us in the broadcast so we could see the yard mark because the guy's running it. I'm like, I think the end zone's down there somewhere, but that was so much fun. I really, as a guy who grew up in Florida, I enjoyed that. I wanted to get out in the snow and do a snow angel, but that always stood out to me as far as calling a Ravens game.
See, you know what? I love this. I knew that I liked Chris before then, not just because he's been great with all the work that he's done, but I love hearing the Baltimore stories. I like to cover sports in general, but we are Baltimore people.
Yes.
And we care about that.
Yeah, you should.
And we're also, because you mentioned your book, and yes, I want you to talk about it. Where could people find your book? What's the name of the book? And will you send me a book?
Yes, I should.
Okay,
I should have sent you a copy had I known that we were going to do this. But it's called "That Deserves a Wow," which was a line I used on SportsCenter way back in the day, and it covers a lot of different things. My decade at ESPN, 20 plus years at Fox, but it also talks about me as a kid growing up and what influenced me to cover sports. And so I think it's good for people in the broadcast business because I ran into different people who I thought showed me how to do interviews, people like Larry King and even Johnny Carson, observing him. Bill Murray, Bill Murray wrote the foreword. We became friends, back in the early 90s at the ESPYs and stayed in touch. And so it addresses a lot of interviews with people like, Bonds and people like Wilt Chamberlain, some of the Jerry Rice, and then some current moments. Red Sox World Series, I was the field reporter when they came back against the Yankees. So those special moments, but there were moments, and they approached me to write the book, where I was there to do a sporting event and other things happened, like the Earthquake World Series. I was reporting on that. I was at the Olympics in Atlanta when the bomb went off and had to go through that process. So you turned into a newscaster in a sense. And then this NASCAR with Fox, where Dale Earnhardt at the Daytona 500 crashed and died. So it's a book that's has some serious moments, but it shows you how to deal with adversity, sadness, tragedy, but then also how to be inspired to be successful through all the athletes and events that I've covered. The wow moments, I call them through the years. So it's HarperCollins is the publisher. You can go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or the audiobook. I did that myself because they had requested that, and or ChrisMeyerSports.com. You can order it on that as well. But I hope people enjoy it because it's sports, but it's a lot more beyond sports.
Yes, you're right there, Brad. When Chris starts talking about, I was at this event, I was at that event. Oh yeah, I was there, and it's also just one after another. Yeah, I want to listen about that. And another time, what we're going to do then, Brad, Chris, I got to find a way to get in contact with you.
Yes,
I want you to come on. We're going to talk about the book more.
Oh, good. Okay.
And we can talk about some more of these stories. I'm a big story guy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, because I think it tells the whole experience, and also I like for people that they can relate to it. And I think that's the part that people want to hear.
And in the book, you can relate to, as a fan, you can relate to it, or as somebody in the business. And I don't want to embarrass you, but it was a pleasure with your dad. I've interviewed him through the years. Even your granddad, I got to meet, obviously, with Earl Weaver when I was a kid growing up down in spring training, and Billy too. So you're the whole relative, the whole bunch, the whole family. You're a very nice group of people.
Thank you. I'm glad you dealt with them. Obviously, it was
your own
pleasure
guy.
to me. Thank you.
Yes.
I know.
I know. I want you to
people say I'm the most charismatic Ripken. No, just kidding. That I might have to give that to Bill. Not going to give that to Calvin, but I appreciate the kind words. They're great. But I look forward to talking more. But again, to wrap it all up, because I got to get you going to your next thing.
Yes.
And I am going to test out what Mueller's got going with Mueller Revive. So again,
this could have saved your career as an athlete.
I might still be playing.
That's right. You'll have a chance.
www.muellerrevive.com. Yes. Go to walmart.com as well if you are looking for the product. And they got about everything. So, Chris, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was great meeting you, talking to you. It was fun. We'll do it again. I'll make sure you get a copy of the book.
Yes. Appreciate that.